Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Peter Grindrod. I'm playing at home today because I'm a member of the mathematics department based here in the lovely new Mathematical Institute. So welcome to those of you here for the first time. I want to talk about really challenges to energy players that are emerging and particularly focus on domestic and small business energy use. I'm going to talk about 4 challenges, and not surprisingly, I'm going to argue that each one of them could benefit from a dose of mathematics too. Okay, so first of all, data. We're going to see data because we're all going to be metered. We're going to have smart meters for the first time, and we're involved in projects where we're looking at what can be learnt and what is the value of smart meter data. But just to step back from energy and think about other types of industry, whenever we've seen industries suffer a data deluge, then this is usually followed with a cultural change within the industry for the successful players. The non-successful players have simply ignored it and carried on and eventually been bought up by the successful ones. So, for example, in retail, everybody used to be supply chain centred, talk about supply chain efficiencies, category management and things like that. And then around about 20 years ago, loyalty cards emerged, and suddenly retailers could worry about why people took things off the shelves rather than how efficiently and wonderfully they could price them and put things onto the shelves. So they shifted from being supply chain centred, supply centric, to becoming customer centric and understanding why people behaved as what they did and what sort of customer journey they've been on. In mobile phones, the mobile phone companies have now sold us 1.5 phones or whatever it is we all have. The land grab's over by and large. Actually, the cost of voice and text is coming down and going through the floor. They need to find new ways for us to engage with our mobile phones. Effectively, they become ISPs, and it's all about content and lifestyle, things like this. Their shareholders still demand that there'll be annual profits, and so they have to look for ways to do things differently. Again, they have to stop worrying about can we provide a mobile network rather than becoming customer-centred and understanding why and how and in what modes people would use their mobile phones. Arguably, we're going to see the same thing in energy. For the first time, we can begin to look at how people are consuming energy in their homes. And actually, you're not the same as your neighbours, is the key point. When we look at houses which are similar assets, similar sizes, similar socioeconomic markers, so they would be classified just on your postcode as similar types of people. When we do behavioural segmentations, we find that you split up very differently. You'll have people who ostensibly look very much the same, but their demand patterns, because all their energy demand is kind of in private, is separating them out and making them seem very different. So this means that we've got to flip, just like the retailers did, just like the telephone companies did. We've got to flip from being rightly proud of our ability to maintain supply and to meet demand, to starting to understand why and how people demand and see what opportunities there are within those spaces. It brings operational challenges. We think of the distribution network operators as people who build and maintain the highway. But actually their role has to widen and become much broader now, because over the next 10 years we're going to see technologies that haven't been invented today put into manufactured objects and placed on our low voltage networks, possibly in communities, possibly by individuals, and everybody's going to expect it as a kind of human right that these things just work and all pull together and join up. And so the analogy is here, we have to move from being highway maintenance to becoming much more like air traffic control and understanding how people are changing the technology, whether it's generation, local generation, whether it's taking out, whether it's local storage and things like that. But whatever goes onto the networks, actually that's going to require some kind of order and some kind of network control of the type we haven't seen before, where really we've just seen network broadcasting energy responding to demand. Again, this gives a number of mathematical questions about segmenting up different types of behaviour, looking at the prevalence of new technologies, and particularly whether or not we can produce rolling 24/7 forecasts and how good or bad they are, and whether those allow us to put smart controls. And these are great questions for mathematicians and engineers. I know Dave Howe is here somewhere, but actually trying to control local networks and trying to demand shift What we want are passive customers. We don't want, recently retired men with their heads under the stairs looking at their meters the whole time. We kind of want people to carry on just using and consuming in the way they believe is best. And for the technology to learn what they do and to forecast part of what they do in a suitable manner. Here's the third challenge. We have to stop thinking about substations and we have to start thinking about the communities. So very often when you talk to power engineers, they'll think about the wires and but of course the wires are invisible to we domestic consumers. We're seeing that some of the most successful energy demand sort of change, energy demand management, are ones which are community-based solutions. And these raised a number of interesting problems, both in the modelling and monitoring of these, but also in the distribution of any shared benefits. So a simple example would be, suppose we all live down the same road, and suppose we all club together, or someone else comes in, Richard Branson or something, and buys a big battery and puts it on our road. So now we can charge up that battery at a time of day when it's cheap, and it can discharge and feed us at a time of day when it's relatively expensive to take energy through the substation. But meanwhile, DEC and Ofgem have rolled out the smart meters, so we're paying for all the energy that goes in through our meter, regardless of whether it came from the substation or the battery. So given that we make some money at the battery, we have to distribute that. How are we going to do that? On what basis are we going to distribute? On what fair basis? Then I move house, and the family from hell moves in where I was, and they're so volatile that they ruin it for everybody. At the moment, we can all consume energy how we like. We're going to need social norms about responsible energy consumption, just like we have social norms about responsible driving that we didn't have, say, back in the 70s. But there are shared benefits, and sharing those benefits is an opportunity. Again, we want benefits for people to come out of this, which in terms of means lower energy costs and convenience, without them having to spend an excessive amount of cognitive effort into achieving those. Well, not all customers are going to look like us, and we've got to think about customers of the future. So Generation Z, or digital natives as they're often called, they're 12 years old or 15 years old now. In 10 years' time, they'll be customers. And we're seeing increasingly when things go wrong on networks or people have got issues over energy, they don't ring up call centres and say, hello, I live in Summertown, when is my energy coming back on? We've got a power cut. Actually, they go straight onto Twitter. So got a power cut, any idea what's going on? And this is a threat and an opportunity. So we're doing a lot of work looking at conversations that take place in social media and how those can be turned around to be opportunities for energy suppliers and actually energy distributors. You see in bottom left here is a picture from Christmas Eve when there were a lot of power cuts down in the southeast of England, and it was a big problem for UK power networks and Southern Energy, our own distributor in this area, where we're looking at something like 88,000 tweets that took place where they specifically mentioned power off, power on, am I going to get my Christmas lunch, that kind of thing. Interestingly, because this is a football-mad month, Gary Lineker became extremely influential in the whole energy situation when he dared to say that the power cuts would affect Boxing Day soccer. And so while we were all prepared to give up Boxing Day lunch, no one wanted to not see the soccer on Boxing Day. And actually that was an opportunity for the DNO to push the right information to the most influential person. Companies are increasingly having private conversations with their customers on public platforms. This is the way it's going to go. You'll be able to close down the call centres. Everybody's going to have private conversations with their customers, with their stakeholders on a public platform. And that has some advantages, but it also has some reputational jeopardies. So the summary of all of this is that the companies that are involved in the moment, they really can't diffuse, they really can't take tiny steps to where they need to be in the face of changes in society, in the changes of attitude. The prosumer got mentioned earlier on. We're all publishers now, in the social media, in the sense of Twitter. They need to become customer-centric, not supply-centric. They've got to be policing and controlling network in the light of all sorts of new technologies that are going to come on, and move away from their demand maintenance, which they've been proud of for years, really. And this is a big change for them. There must be community and consumer benefits given to those who are using energy responsibly. And by that, we don't mean necessarily using small amounts of energy, but using energy in a reliable and predictable manner. So that actually it can be foreseen, and with smart control and smart storage, that can actually shift the apparent demand on the network in a way that's beneficial to all. And then finally, thinking about the future customers living in the digital society and having those conversations with those customers and stakeholders in public. And that's an opportunity if we can get that right. Thank you very much.